Hello, everyone. We'll be starting in a few minutes, just waiting for more people to join. To those who are just joining us, we'll start in a couple of minutes once more people have logged on. So thanks for your patience. Hi, everyone. We're going to start now. So my name is Carlos Biddle. I'm a consultant here at Sphinx. Today, I'll firstly be presenting our software tools and then doing a DATAVIV product demo, totaling about 40 minutes. Today's session will provide an introductory look to our software suite, though we won't cover every detail. If you have any questions during the presentation, my colleague will be answering questions in the chat. That being said, let's jump right in. So Sphinx started out as a company in 1985, and we now have over 50,000 users in 60 different countries. We have firmly established ourselves as the market leader in France, allowing us to extend our expertise to many other parts of the world. For those who aren't familiar with Sphinx, our software allows you to create surveys and analyze data, and is commonly employed in customer experience, also patient satisfaction in healthcare and HR, as well as it's also used extensively in market research, product testing, and academic research, with universities being heavily involved in order to both teach research methodologies and carry out their own research projects. And these are some of our notable clients: consulting firms that use surveys and analyze data for their clients, as well as banks, cosmetic companies. Additionally, we work with over 1,800 universities worldwide. So essentially, we provide a software package with many features. When we first perform a study, we need to create a survey, and our IQ3 module allows you to program advanced surveys very productively, with an abundance of question types to choose from for open-ended questions, closed questions, scaled questions, and more. You can customize your survey in many different ways, and you can optimize it according to device, whether it's a computer, smartphone, or tablet being used. You can also develop multilingual surveys with a tool that automatically translates all the content for you, and that makes sure all the data collected is then all stored in the same language. So the program allows you to devise a survey and then broadcast it, whether that's online with a responsive survey or via email, SMS, QR codes, embedding it into a website through iframe or social media. There's also the possibility to distribute it offline. So if you create a paper survey with Sphinx, you can then scan the paper questionnaires. Therefore, instead of having to enter all the data manually, you can scan it and the software will recognize it. We also have a mobile app, and we have users who've collected data from an array of different sources. And in that case, you can import data onto the program in order to analyze it. And lastly, for market research purposes, you can create a user panel to send out surveys. Select users based on different characteristics. It can also connect to external panels. And obviously, regarding customer experience, you can connect the platform to a CRM or any IT solution and thus automate sending. So essentially, there are many collection channels depending on the research we're doing, and each one has its own design and its own way of operating. This all feeds into one database, regardless of the language. And once we have this database, we can move on to data analysis, which allows us to clean data, see how many respondents have completed the questionnaire, insert extra variables so that you don't have to export it to Excel and then import it again. It can all be done on the same software. So that was the first part of our software suite, IQ3 for survey creation. If you'd like to learn more about this, I hosted a webinar a few weeks ago, which you can watch via this QR code or the link which will be in the chat shortly. Today, however, we're just going to focus on analysis and visualization on DATAVIV. So some of our clients acquire the whole package to control their entire project, all the way from survey design to analysis and visualization using just one tool. And others only want the latter component, so they get DATAVIV by itself. DATAVIV is fully cloud-based and is accessed through just one link. It includes statistical analysis for closed questions, whether it's univariate, bivariate, or multivariate analysis, classifications, factorizations. We can also analyze textual data from open-ended questions, and by processing the textual data, we're able to draw out the orientations. Then after survey, distribution, data management, statistical analysis, text analysis, and data visualization, we have everything we need. And overall, what's great about this is that you can, is that it's all integrated into one tool. And if more people respond to the survey, it updates dashboards, reports, and infographics in real time. So if you conduct the same study every year, you wouldn't have to redo everything, as the data would update itself. Instead of having different tools for each stage, Sphinx encompasses all of this, which certainly streamlines the whole process. Now we're going to move on to the product demo, starting with this database on Excel. So we can also import SPSS, SSS, and CSV files, ideally with this structure, which is one column per variable, and the variable name on the first row and the label on the second row. So now I go on to app.dataviv.net, and this is where I click on New Project and click on Excel file. And I select my spreadsheet. And because the variable names are on the first line and the labels are on the second line, I'm going to tick this box to change this. And there's an option to merge columns with consecutive names. Value detection is done automatically by an algorithm. But if I click on this pencil, I can override this if the type of data isn't correct, as well as change the name and label for the variable. This can all be changed later too, so it's no big deal if I don't modify this now. And then I click on create a project. So now my file has been imported and all the data is now here. And this is where I can create analysis and reporting. And this is an overview of the variables. But next, I'm going to show you a different project, which has far more variables and responses. This Lake Tourism project, so it's a tourism survey in which respondents are asked what they like to do on holiday, and they tell us about their stay. So DATAVIV allows you to visualize data and perform statistical analysis in multiple ways. With a single database, you can create as many infographics, dashboards, and reports as you like. As you can see, I've already created a few, but if I hadn't, I would click on New Visualization and either select Empty View or pick a template and then click on Next. And I'm going to tick this for automatic report, which analyzes all the data at once. Additionally, I can choose for all the variables in this automatic report to be cross-analyzed with one specific parameter of my choosing. But I'm not going to select this, and then I click on OK. And this automatically generates a chart for every variable with lots of pages, as you can see. And all the charts and tables can be edited, deleted, or moved around as much as I want. So this is the quickest way to create a report. This can be shared online through this link with or without a password. Now I'd like to show you how to create one of these manually, step by step. So I go back to my projects and I'm going to open this report, which I've already started to build. So the list of all the variables is on the left-hand side with the type of data as seen in the pictograms. So we have numerical questions, closed questions, open-ended questions, multiple choice, ranking questions, and scaled questions, amongst others. This rectangle is what viewers will see when this is published online or printed or exported to a document. This area up here is where I can place dynamic filters by dragging them from the list, which I'll show later on. And if I go to a chart, this side panel on the right will display all the settings for charts and tables. And this blue plus icon lets us add text, images, and shapes. Like this image, I can move around quite easily. Same for text and every other component there. As for images, I can either select one from my device, or I can browse through the image gallery, which has a wide variety of pictograms and images from endless categories. And you can also create a custom table here. And then contents page, I've placed a company logo here along with a title. So that's the cover page. Now we're going to start with univariate analysis, analyzing activities. So creating a table or graph on DATAVIV is quite simple. All I have to do is drag the variable onto the center of the screen, and I get this suggested graph, which in this case is a bar chart. One really useful thing I can do is create categories. If I go to Answer Options Management, this allows me to group answer options, exclude them, or hide them. So I'm going to hide Other, which is still taken into account for percentages. It just isn't visible on the chart I'm creating. And I can create folders for each category. So I could have land activities and others. And then this one could be water activities. And then I drag each of these answer modalities onto each folder. So walking, hiking, local life, environment, driving, cycling, visits, gastronomy, fishing. We have a few more: canoeing, windsurfing, and that's all of them now. So then I click on OK, and this allows me to simplify graphs and focus on key information. If I insert a table for this data as well, I can click on detail categories to view this with the whole description or just summarized. Now there are some demographic questions in the survey regarding occupation, age, and gender. With occupation or socio-professional category, dragging this variable generates this bar chart. And I can accompany this with a table or just display one of the two. Select which indicators to show on the table. So percentage, frequency, confidence interval, there's a few to choose from. And there are different chart types I can choose from as well. So this is a bar chart, but I could change this to a pie chart, donut chart, column chart, and then there are some interesting ones like a radar graph or a tree map even. And I can change the color scheme down here. One color, two colors, color palette. I can create my own palette with my company colors if I'd like to. And then I can select one of these predefined palettes as well. So as you can see on the right-hand side, there are many customization settings for both tables and charts. And this is how you rename a page. Now age is different as it's a numerical variable. So the default chart is this gauge chart with the mean value 40. I can change this to the median value, which is 38. And we can group these values into classes here on the right. Click on personalize, and I separate class limits with semicolons. Now for this to be in effect, I'd have to change it to a different type. So a pie chart would split this into 5 age groups. Now let's move on to gender, variable 28. This is another interesting variable to take into account. If I drag it onto here, I can present it in a more visual way with fill icons. And then I have to specify which pictograms to use here. So I click on this and search for male, and then search for female. And I want to change this from horizontal to vertical. So it looks better now. And now we're going to delve into cross-analyzing variables. After I rename this, gender, and this one, which is age. So yes, cross-analyzing variables, I can take type of accommodation and resize this. Then I drag occupation, for instance, and drop it on cross. So we get this bar chart. I can click on these arrows here to swap the variables, as well as include a legend. I can insert a table. I can remove the chart. And so now this shows the percentage of respondents who stayed in a hotel. And as we can see, managers in blue are overrepresented at 34% in this category. And having cross-analyzed these two variables, we can cross-analyze a third. So I could drag a numerical variable, such as accommodation budget, and drop it on add a measure. And this now shows me average expenditure for each occupation, hotels, campsites, holiday homes. Alternatively, I can display frequency, percentage, sum, share, median, standard deviation, minimum value, maximum value. Now let's look at a different type of variable. Questions 13 to 22, which is scaled questions, ask respondents how important each of those elements were to them on holiday. So if I drag this entire subsection onto the page, it generates this stacked bar chart, which can display the percentages, or I could swap this for a simple bar chart, which now shows the mean values. And the weighting for the mean values can be adjusted here if I click on apply weights. And as for the numbers, 1 represents strongly disagree and 5 represents strongly agree. If we cross-analyze this with gender, we get this table and or this chart. And I can change this chart to a bubble grid, which is nice and distinct, or a windrows chart, which is pretty cool as well, or even a radar chart. And if I select data labels. Now I can contrast males with females. Another section of statistical analysis is advanced analysis, which we can find here. So this includes many options: importance performance matrix, NPS, strengths and weaknesses matrix, PCA, K-means classification, just to name a few. And you can visualize your data on a map as well. So the variables we were just looking at, I can use them for a K-means cluster, these scaled variables, 13 to 22, and click on OK. And enlarge this. So DATAVIV has generated these homogeneous groups automatically as interpreted from the data. And I can change the number of classes to a fixed number. So I could change this to 4, for instance. Or we could go back to 3. And this divides the tourists who completed the questionnaire into 3 subsets. And to see the characteristics in the bottom right, I can click on detailed results. Sorry, there seems to be a problem with this. I'm just going to refresh the page. Yeah, so as I was saying, with advanced analysis, I can drag questions 13 to 22 for a K-means classification. And enlarge this. So this is the K-means cluster I get. And the detailed results, which we just looked at, you can export them to Excel as well. And I can also rename these subsets here. If I click on name classes. And the creation of this K-means cluster has added variable 51 to this list. So I can go back to advanced analysis, key views, and select a table of characteristics to cross-analyze that K-means cluster we've just looked at with some explanatory variables such as activities, type of accommodation, gender, age, and SPC. And then resize this. So this table of characteristics highlights the most significant responses for the 3 homogeneous groups in the K-means classification we've just looked at. And another option in advanced analysis is to select a PCA chart. So I click on principal component analysis with these expense categories, for instance. And I get this PCA graph. And on the right side panel, I can choose to display both points and vectors, or just points, or vectors to see which variables have a significant relationship. So this was just a first glimpse at what can be done as far as statistical analysis, as there's a lot more to explore in this area. Next, we're going to move on to qualitative data. When it comes to text analysis, we can present a cloud of keywords, expressions cloud, keywords by context, expressions by context, themes and orientations crossings, just to name a few. But if we start off with a simple word cloud, I can drag and drop variable 34, and this generates a lemmatized word cloud, therefore reducing different forms of a word to one single form. And this only shows nouns, verbs, and adjectives, removing prepositions and articles. So this word cloud indicates how frequent the most repeated words are. And by clicking on a word, I can view all the comments which include that word specifically. I can contextualize this by going to table on the menu on the right, signatures, and selecting parameters like gender and age. So I can now see that this comment was made by a 65-year-old woman, and this statement was made by a 41-year-old man. Just to be aware of the demographics behind each comment. And this word cloud is showing the verbatim, but I can replace this with orientations to see the proportion of positive, negative, neutral, and ambiguous comments. This is done through machine learning, and it can be edited manually, but if I have hundreds of comments, then automating it makes a lot more sense. Now, if I want to look at the main topics, I can go to textual and semantic analysis, thematic analysis, and select codebook and manual codification to do this manually. This allows you to read the verbatim and code them according to this thematic grid down here. So firstly, you go through each comment and you go through each comment individually and then designate themes by ticking these boxes. And to create these themes, you click on the pencil on the right and add a theme, type it in and validate. So all you have to do is go through each comment and click on these boxes. This method is very effective when working with a limited amount of data. Though if you have more than, say, 200 responses, we have a better system, which is to select thematic analysis by dictionary. So I can view each word's frequency count on the left. And here I can form different categories and assign as many words as I want to each category. So all the comments that include each word are automatically codified to a theme. That means that every comment with the word bike has been categorized to this topic, activity. And I already have these four, but just to show you how to create one, this one for scenery, I can delete this and redo it. So you click on add a theme. And this is scenery. And all I have to do is drag these words onto here. And that's how you do it. I can also use a template, uploading a dictionary, retrieving one from another project or the template library. And once I've finished this, I can reuse all of this I've created for different projects, so I don't have to redo it again. And essentially, this transforms textual data into what looks like a closed multiple choice question, which I can now cross-analyze with a context variable, such as gender. So now I can see men, what topics they talk about, and the same for women. Next, I'd like to show you how dynamic filters work. So if I go to the tourist profile page, we have this chart for type of accommodation, and I copy this and then I can paste it here and change it to vertical. And resize this. And I'm going to add some more variables to this page. So age and gender. Resize these. And then socio-professional category. Now, one really cool feature on DATAVIV is that having selected this chart, I can click on scenario and select filter analysis for the rest of these charts, and then click on validate. And I can also include a relationship diagram for the same three. So when anyone who's viewing the dashboard clicks on different elements of the chart, which would be different types of accommodation in this case, it filters all the other charts selected. So it displays the numbers for these places of stay specifically. This also allows me to view statistical test results and statistical information such as the p-value. The letter S indicates a significant relationship, and VS represents a very significant relationship. And obviously it adapts the statistical tests depending on the type of data being analyzed or cross-analyzed, including chi-square value, Fisher's test value, degrees of freedom. And clicking on the green circle opens this cross table with blue denoting overrepresented and red suggesting underrepresented. The same goes for the economic impact page. I get this number, 2,407 euros, by dragging total expense onto here and changing this from a gauge chart to a value indicator. Then I go to advanced settings and display units to show the currency. So that's how you get that. And this relationship diagram basically reflects average expenditure in each of these four areas. I can also place a dynamic filter for occupation here at the top. This way, I can see how much retirees
Sí.
Just trying to share my screen. Sorry about that. Okay. Sorry about that. I had some network issues. Okay, so as I was saying, I can place this dynamic filter for Sorry about that. I had some network issues. Thank you for your patience. So as I was telling you, with looking at dynamic filters, and here I can place occupation. I can drag it here, and I can filter by retired people to see that their total expense is 2,663 euros, as opposed to managers, for instance, 2,912, and a very significant relationship with how much they spend on restaurants. So this interactive filter makes your reports and dashboards very engaging and dynamic for viewers. And as for the rest of the interface, if I go to calculation, I can weight and filter the sample here. And this drop down allows me to access my other projects. And if I click on my views, it takes me to the DATAVIV homepage. And I'm going to briefly show you this infographic, which is edited the same way. I'm going to change the display. So the layout for an infographic is usually different, with larger font and less text, just focusing on key indicators. And just like with reports and dashboards, I can enable dynamic filters so that viewers can see. If I do filter analysis, I can select different charts here. Most of them have already been selected, but then click on validate, and now viewers can click on different elements of the chart. So if they click on France, it filters the data for French respondents, and if they click on abroad, they see the numbers for foreigners. And as an alternative to reports and infographics, we can also produce dashboards. I'm going to view size to fit. So dashboards are predominantly visual and include lots of dynamic filters as well. And lastly, I'd like to show you our examples page on our website. So under resources, you can click on examples and you'll find some dashboard, report, and infographic prototypes we've developed, as well as survey examples. So this is an employee experience dashboard. This dashboard is somewhat similar to the ones we've been looking at, with dynamic filters and an importance performance matrix. We also provide modules for web reporting. So this module has restricted access for organizations. So with the same link for everyone, each person signs in and the data is filtered by, the platform is filtered by each person's data. And lastly, this customer satisfaction infographic, which is quite nice as well. This customer satisfaction infographic, this has a really cool map here, and at the bottom, a couple of word clouds. So that's it. We've seen how to analyze qualitative and quantitative data to display your findings via reports, dashboards, and infographics, and how to perform statistical analysis on DATAVIV. These visualizations can be shared online, exported, or printed. And just so you know, we provide multiple licenses that can be tailored to your requirements. You can request customized demos and even a free trial for a limited time. So thank you everyone for joining us today and for sticking through the network connectivity issues. I hope you enjoyed this presentation despite the delay. For those questions which haven't been answered in the chat, I'll get back to you personally. Or if you have any further questions, please feel free to email me. My colleague is sending a link to a sample form, which you can also view by scanning this QR code. So thank you very much, everyone, and hope to see you soon.